I'm Clara, and I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, in a family that looked like it belonged on the cover of Southern Living magazine. From the outside, we had everything you could dream of. A sprawling colonial mansion with white columns, luxury BMWs in the circular driveway, and a chain of boutique bed and breakfasts called Magnolia Inns that made everyone believe we were living the ultimate American success story. But behind those picture-perfect shutters, it was a completely different reality. My parents always had their golden child, and spoiler alert, it wasn't me. My younger brother, Austin, got everything served to him on a silver platter. Elite prep schools, a brand new Tesla for his 16th birthday, even a downtown loft when he barely had a summer job under his belt. Me? I was the one they told to figure it out yourself. I fought tooth and nail for every opportunity one got. Worked double shifts at a coffee shop and a tutoring center throughout college, graduated summa cum laude with a degree in business finance, and clawed my way into a respected position as an investment advisor. I thought if I just proved myself enough, worked hard enough, achieved enough success, they'd finally see me as worthy. But no matter how many 60-hour weeks I pulled or how many high-profile clients I landed, I remained completely invisible to them. The only person who ever truly believed in me was my grandfather, Pop. He was the one who built our family fortune from nothing, a self-made man who started with a single boarding house and grew it into an empire through smart investments and sheer determination. Before I was even born, Pop had set up trust funds worth $5 million total, meant to be split equally between Austin and me when we turned 25. He was fair, generous, and the only family member who didn't play favorites. While my parents showered Austin with praise for mediocrity, Pop would sit with me for hours, teaching me about compound interest and real estate markets, telling me I had the sharpest financial mind he'd ever seen. That Tuesday morning changed everything. I was in my downtown Charleston office, putting finishing touches on a presentation for a major client meeting in Atlanta, a deal that could have launched my career into the stratosphere. My phone buzzed with my mom's contact photo, and something in my gut immediately felt wrong. She never called during business hours. Her voice was shaking, barely coherent through what sounded like heavy sobbing. "Clara, honey, it's Pop," she managed between gasps. "He's had a terrible fall down the stairs. The doctors say he needs immediate surgery, but insurance won't cover it all. We need money fast, sweetheart, like right now." My heart dropped into my stomach. Pop was my anchor, my biggest supporter, the one person who made family gatherings bearable. Without hesitation, I canceled my Atlanta presentation, disappointing my boss and potentially losing the biggest opportunity of my career. "How much do you need?" I asked, already reaching for my purse. "The surgery costs $60,000, but we need it today or they won't operate," she sobbed. "I know you have your emergency fund." I gave her my safe combination without a second thought. After all, family comes first, right? I broke every speed limit racing to Pop's house in the historic district, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind was spinning with worst-case scenarios. What if I was too late? What if that fall had caused internal bleeding? Pop was 78, and at his age, a serious fall could be catastrophic. I burst through his familiar oak front door, my heart pounding, expecting to see paramedics or at least some sign of the medical emergency that had sent my mother into hysterics. Instead, I found Pop sitting peacefully in his favorite leather recliner, reading the Charleston Post and Courier, a steaming cup of sweet tea on the side table next to him. He looked up, completely confused by my dramatic entrance. "Clara, darling, what on earth are you doing here? Shouldn't you be preparing for that big Atlanta meeting you told me about?" I stood there, mouth agape, trying to process what I was seeing. No bandages, no bruises, no sign of any fall whatsoever. He looked as healthy and robust as ever, wearing his usual khaki pants and polo shirt, his silver hair perfectly combed. "Pop, Mom called me crying. She said you fell down the stairs and needed emergency surgery." My voice trailed off as I watched his expression shift from confusion to something much darker. His jaw tightened, and he carefully folded his newspaper, setting it aside. "She told you I was hurt?" he asked, his voice dropping to that tone he used when he was truly angry, which was rare. "She said you needed $60,000 for surgery that insurance wouldn't cover." I gave her my safe combination so she could. The words died in my throat as the full realization hit me like a freight train. Pop's face darkened with fury. "Clara, sweetheart, I haven't fallen. I haven't been to a doctor. I'm perfectly fine, as you can see." He stood up, moving with the same steady gait he'd always had. Your mother asked me to play along with some story about being injured, said it would keep family drama to a minimum if you stayed in Charleston instead of going to Atlanta. I told her absolutely not, I wouldn't lie to my granddaughter. The room started spinning. My own mother had fabricated an entire medical emergency, used Pop's name and my love for him to manipulate me into missing the most important meeting of my career. But worse than that, she tricked me into giving her access to my life savings. My phone was already buzzing with notifications. With trembling hands, I opened Instagram and immediately saw Austin's latest post, a photo of him and my parents at some upscale steakhouse in Atlanta, all smiles, raising champagne glasses. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings. Sometimes the best opportunities come when you least expect them." Clinking glasses sparkles. My breath caught in my throat. They were in Atlanta. The same Atlanta where my crucial client meeting was supposed to happen. The same meeting I'd cancelled to rush home for a fake emergency. But the real gut punch came when I checked my bank account. My emergency fund, 5 years of careful saving, $60,000, was completely gone. They'd stolen my money and my opportunity in one calculated move. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced around Pop's guest room, my mind reeling from the betrayal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that smug photo of my family celebrating while I'd been panicking about Pop's non-existent injury. But something deeper was eating at me. This level of deception felt too elaborate, too calculated for just $60,000. Pop found me at 3 in the morning, sitting at his kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at my empty bank account. His weathered face was etched with concern and something else I couldn't quite identify. Guilt, maybe? "Clara," he said softly, settling into the chair across from me. "There's something else you need to know. Something I should have told you years ago." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He disappeared into his study and returned with a thick manila folder, the kind lawyers use for important documents. His hands shook slightly as he placed it in front of me. "I've been tracking some irregularities in your trust fund. Things that didn't add up." With growing dread, I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, legal documents, and financial records that made my blood run cold. Page after page of evidence showing that my parents had been systematically draining my trust fund for years. "The trust was supposed to remain untouched until you both turned 25, Pop explained, his voice heavy with regret. "But your parents had access as trustees. I trusted them to do right by both of you." I scanned the documents, my eyes catching on transaction after transaction. $50,000 for Austin's prep school tuition. $80,000 for his Tesla. Another $100,000 for some failed cryptocurrency venture he'd wanted to try. And most recently, a massive withdrawal of $200,000 labeled business expansion, money that had clearly gone toward Austin's new loft and lifestyle. "Pop, how much is supposed to be in my account?" I asked, though I was terrified of the answer. $2.5 million, he said quietly. "But according to these statements, there's less than $50,000 left." The room started spinning. While I'd been working 70-hour weeks, saving every penny, living in a modest apartment and driving a 10-year-old Honda Civic, my parents had been funding Austin's lavish lifestyle with my inheritance. Money that Pop had earned through decades of hard work, money he'd specifically set aside for my future. "There's more," Pop continued, pulling out another document. "I overheard your father on a phone call last week. They're planning to transfer ownership of Magnolia Inns to Austin. The business I built, the business I always planned to leave to both my grandchildren equally, they're cutting you out completely." I stared at him, my mind struggling to process this level of betrayal. "They're giving him everything? The entire chain?" Pop nodded grimly. "The paperwork is being finalized next week. Once it's done, Austin will own all 15 properties. You'll be left with nothing." A strange calm settled over me as the full scope of their deception became clear. This wasn't just about the $60,000 they'd stolen tonight. This was about years of systematic theft, of being erased from my own family's legacy. "Pop," I said, my voice steady despite the fury building in my chest, "I need you to help me stop them." His eyes met mine, and I saw a spark of the fighter he'd always been. "What do you need me to do?" The next morning, I made a call that would change everything. My cousin Natalie lived in Savannah. She'd walked away from the family business years ago after witnessing too many of my parents' questionable decisions. She was a corporate attorney now, known for her razor-sharp mind and her complete intolerance for fraud. When Natalie arrived at Pop's house that afternoon, she took one look at the folder of evidence and let out a low whistle. "Clara, this is textbook embezzlement. They've been stealing from you for years." She flipped through the bank records, her expression growing darker with each page. "And if they're moving assets to offshore accounts like this suggests, they're planning to disappear with whatever's left." My blood turned to ice. "You think they're going to run?" "I think they're going to liquidate everything they can and relocate somewhere without extradition treaties," Natalie said bluntly. "Probably somewhere tropical where Austin's trust fund lifestyle can continue indefinitely." Pop leaned forward in his chair. "How long do we have?" "Based on these transfer dates, maybe a week before the hotel ownership papers are finalized. After that, they'll have assets they can quickly convert to cash." Natalie's eyes gleamed with the same intensity one remembered from when we were kids, and she was planning elaborate pranks. "But we can stop them. We just need to move fast and hit them where they'll never see it coming." I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, a sense of power, of control over my own destiny. "What's our first move?" Natalie smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. "We destroy their reputation. Your parents have built their entire social standing on being the perfect Southern family. They're active in the country club, the charity circuit, the Chamber of Commerce. If we expose them publicly, they'll have nowhere to hide." She pulled out her phone and showed me Austin's Instagram account. His latest post was a photo from that Atlanta steakhouse, but now I could see details I'd missed before. In the background of one photo was a real estate contract on the table, the Magnolia Inn's transfer papers. "He's so arrogant he's literally posting evidence of his crimes," I said, screenshotting the image. Pop had been quietly reviewing more documents while we talked. "There's something else," he said, holding up a yellowed piece of paper. "The original partnership agreement I signed with your father when I handed over day-to-day operations of Magnolia Inns. There's a clause I insisted on that they probably forgot about." Natalie snatched the document, her lawyer eyes scanning rapidly. "A morality clause. If either party is found to have engaged in dishonest or fraudulent behavior, the partnership can be dissolved and assets returned to the original owner." She looked up at Pop with newfound respect. "You sneaky genius. You planned for this possibility 30 years ago." I felt a fierce smile spread across my face. "So we can get the hotels back?" "If we can prove fraud, we can get everything back," Natalie confirmed. "Your trust fund, the hotels, and probably send them to prison in the process." Pop reached over and squeezed my hand. "Your grandmother always said you had fire in you, Clara. Time to let it burn." I nodded, feeling more determined than I'd ever felt in my life. "Let's burn their house of lies to the ground." We spent the next day crafting our attack with military precision. I sat in Pop's study, my fingers hovering over my phone keyboard, ready to detonate a bomb under my parents' perfect facade. Austin's latest Instagram post stared back at me, him on a yacht in Charleston Harbor, champagne flute raised, with a caption "Living my best life. Family money well spent. Motorboat clinking glasses." The irony was perfect. He was literally bragging about spending my stolen inheritance. I took a deep breath and began typing, "Funny how family money gets well spent when it's stolen from your sister's trust fund. Even funnier how parents fake their own father's medical emergency to steal $60,000 while celebrating your inheritance theft at the same Atlanta restaurant. They thought I'd never find the $2.5 million they funneled to you while I worked 70-hour weeks. Magnolia Inns was supposed to be for both grandchildren, but apparently fraud runs in the family. #family secrets #Magnolia Inns truth." I attached screenshots of the bank transfers, the Instagram photos from that night, and the trust fund statements showing years of unauthorized withdrawals. My finger trembled over the post button. Once I pressed it, there would be no going back. I pressed it. Within minutes, my phone exploded with notifications. Comments, shares, messages from friends, distant relatives, even employees from Magnolia Inns. The post was spreading like wildfire through Charleston's tight-knit social circles. Is this real? What's happening at Magnolia Inns? I always wondered how Austin afforded that lifestyle. Those poor grandparents. My phone rang almost immediately. Austin's panicked voice crackled through the speaker. "Clara, what the hell are you doing? Take that post down right now. You're destroying Mom and Dad's reputation. I let the silence stretch, savoring his panic. Destroying their reputation. I said calmly. Austin, they stole my inheritance. They faked Pop's injury to rob me. They planned to give you a business that was meant for both of us. I'm not destroying anything, I'm revealing the truth. You don't understand how complicated this is. No, I cut him off. It's simple. You took what was mine, and now everyone knows. Next came Mom, her voice shrill with barely contained hysteria. Clara Elizabeth, you take that post down this instant. You're embarrassing the entire family. I actually laughed. Embarrassing the family? You faked a medical emergency involving your own father. You stole $2.5 million from me. You planned to erase me from the family business entirely. The only embarrassing thing is that I trusted you. We did what was best for everyone. Austin was ready for that responsibility. And I wasn't? After building my own successful career while he partied with my money. By evening, the damage was catastrophic and spreading beyond social media. Local news stations had picked up the story. Charleston Business Journal was calling for interviews. 3 different law firms had reached out offering to represent me pro bono, sensing a high-profile case. Most importantly, longtime Magnolia Inn's employees started coming forward with their own stories: unpaid overtime, missing pension contributions, suspicious accounting practices. The scandal wasn't just about family drama anymore, it was about business fraud on a massive scale. Natalie called that night, barely containing her excitement. Clara, we've got them. The hotel ownership transfer has been frozen pending investigation. The State Attorney General's office wants to meet with us tomorrow. I smiled, looking out at the Charleston skyline. Time for Act 2 of this performance. The next morning, I walked into Magnolia Inn's corporate headquarters downtown, my heels clicking confidently on the marble floors I'd walked across as a child, dreaming of one day helping run the family business. Today, I wasn't the overlooked daughter, I was coming to claim what was rightfully mine. I pushed open the door to Dad's corner office without knocking. He and Mom were frantically feeding documents into a paper shredder, their usually composed faces flushed with panic. They froze when they saw me, looking like deer caught in headlights. You have no right to be here, Clara, Dad snarled, trying to regain his composure. This is still my office. I held up the original partnership agreement Pop had found, my voice steady and calm. Actually, I do belong here. You see, you missed something important in this contract, Dad. The morality clause that says if you're caught lying, stealing, or engaging in fraud, you forfeit everything. His face went pale as he snatched the document, his eyes scanning the legal language he'd forgotten existed. Mom gripped his arm, her perfectly manicured nails digging into his sleeve. Clara, let's discuss this like adults, Mom said, her voice shaking. Surely we can work something out as a family. Work something out? I raised an eyebrow. Like when you worked out giving Austin my $2.5 million. Or when you worked out lying about Pop's health to steal my emergency fund. Before they could respond, Austin burst through the door, red-faced and sweating. You're destroying everything we've built, Clara. Why can't you just let this go? I turned to face my golden boy brother, the one who'd lived like a prince on my stolen future. Let it go? Austin, you drove a Tesla bought with my money. You lived in a loft paid for with my inheritance. You partied on yachts funded by my trust fund. And you never once asked where it all came from. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I corrected. There's a difference. The office door opened again, and in walked 2 FBI agents, followed by Natalie, Pop, and a representative from the State Attorney General's office. Dad's face went ashen. William Harris, Catherine Harris, you're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes, announced Agent Rodriguez, a sharp-eyed woman in a navy suit. Mom gasped and grabbed Dad's arm. Do something, she hissed. But there was nothing left to do. The evidence was overwhelming: bank records, forged documents, witness testimonies from employees who'd been afraid to speak up for years. As the agents read them their rights, I pulled out one final folder, additional evidence Natalie and I had gathered showing offshore accounts, tax evasion, and a paper trail leading to planned permanent relocation to Costa Rica. This shows you were planning to disappear with what was left of the family assets, I said, handing the folder to Agent Rodriguez. My trust fund, the hotel profits, everything. Dad's eyes burned with fury as the handcuffs clicked into place. You think you've won? You're still nothing without us. I met his gaze without flinching. I was never nothing. You just convinced me I was. As they led my parents away, Austin stared at me in shock, finally understanding that his privileged life was over. The golden child had fallen, and I was rising from their ashes. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of the flagship Magnolia in overlooking Charleston Harbor, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The legal proceedings had been swift once all the evidence came to light. Mom and Dad were sentenced to federal prison for financial fraud and conspiracy. The courts awarded me full ownership of Magnolia Inns, along with what remained of my trust fund and damages. Austin, stripped of his ill-gotten wealth and facing his own legal troubles as an accomplice, had sent me a desperate text message last week, a pathetic attempt at an apology mixed with a plea for financial help. I deleted it without responding. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness, and I was done carrying the weight of his entitlement. Taking over the business hadn't been easy. Dad had left behind a mess of bad contracts, demoralized employees, and a reputation in tatters. But I'd thrown myself into rebuilding with the same determination that had gotten me through college and launched my career in finance. I'd started by paying back wages to employees who'd been cheated, implementing profit-sharing programs, and creating scholarship funds for their children. Slowly, trust began to rebuild. The hotels transformed from places where people worked out of necessity into places where they worked with pride and purpose. You know, Pop said, joining me on the balcony with 2 cups of sweet tea, I always knew you had the strength to turn their lies into your triumph. I accepted the tea gratefully, still marveling at how much my life had changed. I never imagined it would end like this. Pop chuckled. Your grandmother used to say that sometimes the worst betrayals become the greatest gifts. They force you to discover what you're truly made of. He was right. My parents had tried to break me, to erase me from my own family's legacy. Instead, they'd inadvertently shown me exactly what I was capable of achieving. I wasn't just surviving their betrayal, I was thriving beyond anything I'd ever imagined possible. The Magnolia Inns chain was more successful now than it had ever been under Dad's management. We'd expanded to 3 new locations, earned recognition for ethical business practices, and became one of Charleston's most sought-after employers. My phone buzzed with a notification, another 5-star review praising our staff and service. I smiled, thinking about how different things might have been if my parents had simply treated me as an equal instead of trying to steal my future. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared over the harbor, I felt a profound sense of peace. The scared, overlooked daughter who'd cancelled a career-changing meeting to rush home for a fake emergency was gone. In her place stood a confident businesswoman who'd turned betrayal into triumph. To everyone who's followed this journey with me, thank you for walking alongside me through the pain, the fight, and the ultimate victory. If my story resonates with you, if you felt the sting of family betrayal or the fire of fighting back, remember this: your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. Sometimes the people who try to destroy you end up showing you exactly how strong you really are. Keep building your own legacy, and never let anyone convince you that you're worth less than you know you are.